Think about the last decision you made. Was it what to have for breakfast this morning? Or which news article you clicked while scrolling? You might believe that choice was entirely your own. A simple, independent act based on your personal preference or a sudden whim. You wanted toast, so you had toast. The headline seemed interesting, so you clicked. It feels straightforward. You feel in complete control of your own mind, steering your life with a firm hand on the tiller, making one free choice after another. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that feeling of control is an illusion, a comfortable narrative we tell ourselves? The truth is more complex. Every day, in countless subtle ways, your decisions are shaped by forces you rarely notice. These are the invisible hands of influence, gently guiding your thoughts, gently guiding your desires, gently guiding your actions. They operate in the background of your life, quietly and persistently, or feel compelled to agree with a popular opinion online. These forces aren't mystical. They're products of psychology, sociology, and deliberate design. They're embedded in the structure of our world, in our conversations, in our media, in our communities. From the layout of a supermarket aisle to the algorithm that curates your social feed, every element can be crafted to steer you. You walk through a landscape planned to influence you, often without your conscious awareness or consent. It's a fundamental part of human society across history. Understanding these mechanics isn't about paranoia. It's about gaining clarity, pulling back the curtain to see how the world works. When you recognize patterns of influence, you see the architecture behind your choices. That awareness is the first step toward autonomy. It lets you tell what you truly want from what you were persuaded to want, giving you tools to think more critically and act more consciously. At its core, influence is the art of persuasion. It is the process of changing attitudes or behaviors through a carefully crafted message. These principles are like keys that unlock specific doors in the human mind, tapping into our deepest instincts and cognitive shortcuts. Rather than analyzing every single piece of information from scratch, we rely on mental shortcuts or heuristics to make quick judgments. This isn't a new phenomenon. Aristotle identified 3 pillars of persuasion: ethos, pathos, logos. While the tools have changed, these concepts remain the bedrock of modern influence. A heartfelt story from a friend, pathos; a statistic from a trusted news source, logos; a recommendation from an expert, ethos. All use these ancient methods to guide our thinking. Consider the simple act of a free sample at a grocery store. It seems like a generous offer, a chance to try before you buy. But it is also a powerful tool of persuasion. This act triggers a deep-seated psychological principle known as reciprocity. The small, seemingly insignificant gift creates a subtle sense of obligation. You have received something for free, and now you feel a slight, often subconscious, pressure to give something back in return. In this case, by purchasing the product. It's a gentle nudge, not a forceful push, but it can tip the scales of your decision-making. One of the most powerful forces shaping our behavior is the desire to conform. When we are uncertain about how to act, we look to others for clues. This is why we are more likely to eat at a busy restaurant than an empty one, or choose a product with thousands of positive online reviews. If countless others have already tested a path and found it satisfactory, it saves us the time and effort of conducting our own research. The problem arises when this instinct is exploited. Marketers and influencers can artificially create the illusion of a crowd. Think about the phenomenon of canned laughter in television sitcoms. The pre-recorded laughter provides social proof that the jokes are funny, signaling to our brains that laughing is the appropriate response. Even though we consciously know the laughter is fake, it still influences our emotional reaction on a subconscious level. When we see a particular opinion trending on social media, it creates immense pressure to align our own views. We can pause and ask ourselves, am I agreeing with this because it is logical and right, or simply because everyone else seems to agree? From a young age, we are taught to respect and obey authority figures. Our parents, teachers, doctors. The symbols of authority can be just as powerful as actual expertise. A uniform, a fancy title, an academic degree can trigger our compliance reflex automatically. An actor wearing a lab coat in a commercial, for instance, can successfully persuade viewers to buy a particular brand of toothpaste, even though the doctor has no real medical credentials. Our brain registers the symbol, the lab coat, and defaults to its obey the expert programming. One of the most famous and unsettling demonstrations of this principle is the Milgram experiment, conducted in the 1960s. In this study, participants were instructed by a white-coated scientist to administer what they believed were increasingly painful electric shocks to another person. A shocking number of participants continued to administer the shocks, despite hearing cries of pain, simply because the authority figure in the room told them to continue. The experiment revealed the extraordinary power of perceived authority to override an individual's own moral compass. Beyond social proof and authority, two other principles play a profound role in our decision-making. Reciprocity. The rule of reciprocity states that we feel obligated to repay in kind what another person has provided for us. A nonprofit organization that includes a small gift is creating a social obligation. Complementing this is the principle of scarcity. We are wired to believe that things that are difficult to obtain are more valuable. The thought of losing out on an opportunity triggers a strong emotional response. The scarcity itself becomes the primary driver of the decision, eclipsing all other rational considerations. Together, reciprocity and scarcity create a powerful one-two punch of influence. One creates a sense of obligation to say yes, while the other creates a sense of urgency to say yes now, you know. By recognizing these tactics, you can diffuse their power and assess an offer based on its actual merit. In the modern world, our attention is the most valuable commodity. Media and advertising are locked in a relentless battle to capture and hold it. The primary weapon in this war is the image. A single powerful visual can convey a complex idea or emotion in an instant, bypassing our rational thought processes entirely. An advertisement for a luxury car rarely focuses on the vehicle's engine specifications. Instead, it shows the car driving along a stunning coastal highway at sunset. It shows a confident, attractive driver who embodies success and freedom. The ad is not selling you a machine. It is selling you an identity. It is selling you the feeling of being that person in that moment. The same principle applies to news media. A picture of a protester throwing a rock creates a narrative of violence. A picture of a peaceful family marching creates a narrative of righteous struggle. The editorial choice of which image to feature directs the audience's emotional response and frames their understanding of the issue. A politician photographed from a low angle appears powerful and dominant. The same person photographed from a high angle can seem small and vulnerable. By becoming more visually literate, we can start to deconstruct these images and see the choices behind them. We can ask, what is this image trying to make me feel, and why? Have you ever found yourself humming a jingle for a product you have never used? This is the result of one of the oldest and most effective tools of influence, repetition. When we are exposed to a message over and over again, it begins to feel more true. This is known as the illusory truth effect. In the store, the familiar brand feels safer and more reliable. Complex policy becomes a simple slogan, repeated by pundits, politicians, and social media influencers, and it can feel like fact. The danger, vulnerability to misinformation. A lie repeated often can start to feel true. While repetition builds familiarity, it is emotion that ultimately drives action. They target our hearts. Consider the classic holiday commercials. They rarely feature the product prominently. Instead, they tell a heartwarming story about family, connection, generosity. When you later see that brand's logo, it subconsciously triggers a faint echo of that good feeling. You are not just buying a can of soda, you are buying a small piece of that holiday magic. Fear is another incredibly potent emotion used in media and advertising. These messages work by creating a problem, anxiety, fear, and then presenting the product as the one and only solution. Inner voice, whisper. This ad is trying to make me feel insecure. Narrator. By naming the feeling, you create a critical distance. This allows you to evaluate the product on its own merits, separate from the engineered feelings attached to it. We like to think of ourselves as individuals, but when people gather, something strange and powerful happens. A new entity emerges, the crowd, and the crowd has a mind of its own. They lose their sense of individual responsibility and become submerged in the group's collective consciousness, a process he called de-individuation. In a crowd, our complex, nuanced individual personalities are stripped away, replaced by a more primitive, instinctual, and highly emotional state. This emotional contagion can spread through a crowd like wildfire. An idea that might seem radical to an individual can feel like an undeniable truth when it is being chanted by 1,000 voices. It can lead to incredible acts of collective bravery and solidarity, such as citizens uniting to topple a corrupt regime. But it can also lead to mob violence, riots, mass hysteria. The same psychological forces that power a peaceful march can also power a destructive rampage. Recognizing the pull of the collective mind allows you to maintain a foothold in your own individuality. It empowers you to participate without being completely consumed. How does an idea spread from a small niche to become a massive trend? Often, change happens suddenly and dramatically when an idea reaches what is known as a tipping point. 3 types of people are crucial for making an idea tip: the connectors, the mavens, and the salesmen. When a connector spreads an idea, a maven validates it, and a salesman persuades people of its value. The conditions are perfect for a tipping point. In the digital age, social media influencers often embody all 3 roles at once. They are connectors, mavens, and salesmen who can sell a product or an ideology with a single post. For a message to go viral, it needs to be packaged in a way that is easy to share. The first and most crucial ingredient is emotion. The second ingredient is storytelling. Humans are not wired to remember facts and figures, but we are wired to remember stories. The third ingredient is simplicity. It needs to be digestible in a matter of seconds. This is why hashtags, slogans, and memes are such powerful tools for viral movements. When these 3 elements, strong emotion, a compelling story, and a simple portable message, come together, an idea has the potential to become contagious. By recognizing this formula, we can ask ourselves, is this message powerful because it is true, or simply because it is perfectly packaged to be shared? The power of influence is, in itself, a neutral tool. This is where we must draw a critical distinction between ethical persuasion and unethical manipulation. Persuasion involves presenting an argument in a way that allows the other person to make a conscious, informed, and free choice. It seeks to enlighten and convince. Manipulation, on the other hand, is persuasion with a hidden agenda. It seeks to trick, coerce, or mislead someone into making a choice they would not have made if they were fully informed. The key difference is intent. By approaching influence with this critical framework, you can begin to distinguish between the invitations to thoughtful consideration and the traps laid by those who see you merely as a means to an end. A responsible leader does not seek to control their followers, but to empower them. They use their influence to inspire, to educate, to foster critical thinking. We can also design our environments to promote ethical influence. This is the concept of choice architecture. For example, social media platforms could be redesigned to slow the spread of misinformation. They could implement friction. Schools can integrate media literacy and critical thinking into core curricula from a young age, teaching students how to evaluate sources. We have journeyed through the unseen world of influence. We have seen how social proof, authority, and scarcity quietly guide our hands, how media and advertising engineer our emotions. The goal is empowerment. Awareness is your greatest tool. Once you learn to see the strings of influence, they lose much of their power over you. This clarity allows you to participate in it more consciously and deliberately. It gives you the power to pause, to question your own gut feelings, and to distinguish between an authentic desire and one that has been subtly planted in your mind, taking the reins of your own mind and steering toward a destination of your own choosing. Our thoughts don't exist in isolation. They're shaped every day by the world around us. Subscribe to Kendu Global Files for more 20-minute documentaries that help you see the world more clearly.